Okay.
Okay, this is the Wednesday, October 21st meeting of the Community Services and Personnel Committee. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:03. Roll call tonight. We have Greg Burnett.
Present.
Diana Revolutes. Gotcha. Okay, Dominique Johnson.
Here.
Tom Keegan. Kadeem Roberts.
Present.
And Nick Sacchinelli.
Present.
And myself, Barbara Smith. So we have a full house. Second item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have anyone with us tonight?
We do have one person. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand electronically and I will unmute you. I recognize the name. They spoke at the last meeting, but I think they had the wrong meeting. But it doesn't.
Could be the wrong meeting as well.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they want to speak.
Yes, Ms. Curran, if you are looking for a discussion on Colonial Village, that is not on this agenda or with this committee. So I just want to let you know. Okay. Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes from the meeting held on September 16th. Do I have a motion? Ms. Johnson moves the item. Any comments, edits, changes? Nope, looks good to me too. All in favor of the minutes? Raise your hand. I think we could just raise your hand, please. All right, it is unanimous. Okay. All right, on to discussion. We're starting with community services tonight. We have the introduction of Maria Escalera, Human Services Director. I will turn it over to Lamond to introduce her.
Good evening.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Let's just note, we also have David Hooverman, another council member who's joined us for this meeting. Not on the committee, but he's joined us. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, sure. No, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and to Council. I'm really excited. As you all know, that prior to my arrival here, you know, the city through you all went through the reorg, and tonight, what makes me really excited is that, you know, in my opinion, I have the best human services director that Norwalk has. And so this actually completes the reorg for the community services department. And so I would like to introduce to the committee and to those that may be watching, Maria Escalera, who is Norwalk's first Human Services Director. I asked Maria, would she mind introducing herself, a little bit of background, and then Maria hit the ground running because there's so much to do. And she can just give you a broad overview, Madam Chair, of just some of the things that she's been doing, because we are very, very busy. We stay very, very busy, but that's why this department is so important, because I often think of we are the hands and the feet to the community. So we're touching them in many ways. And as you know, because of COVID, my department has been extremely busy identifying what those services are, working with the rich social service community to help mainstream, help coordinate, and just help amplify the needs and also provide funding. Money does not come through my department directly, but I often receive calls or inquiries from funders or philanthropists or just private donors that say, hey, I want to support. So I'm often kind of triaging, if you will, you know, why don't you consider this organization, look at this organization, or bring folks to the table. So those that are interested in funding programs here in Norwalk, I'm able to bring them to the table. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Maria Escalera, and she will take it from there. Good evening, Maria, and welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Lamond, for the introduction, and thank you, everyone, for letting me join today's committee meeting. I'm really excited to be in this position and being able to continue to serve the city of Norwalk. Prior to coming to the city, I was at the Norwalk Community Health Center as their Chief Operating Officer. And prior to that, I was at a community health center in Massachusetts. And so serving the community and the underserved is really part of who I am and what my career focus is. So I'm excited to be in this position to, serve the city on a broader scale, to be able to work with all the nonprofits and social service agencies, bringing them all together and really being able to connect residents to the services that they need, especially during this time where COVID has really impacted all of our lives. And so this is the start of my 6th week. And so day one, Lamond had a list of things for me to do.
Don't tell them that.
And I was very excited about that. I really, was really excited to be able to, just start meeting everyone. I've been really just working with the other nonprofits, introducing myself, understanding, what are the needs of the community, and starting with the Norwalk Public Schools and understanding, how can this department support students who are remote learners, making sure that they have access to internet, and then hiring family navigators to assist them with any other services and needs that they may have. And, a lot of families now are, in a position where they have never had to ask for help. And now they're in a position where they need assistance with getting food. Something as basic as internet that wasn't anything that we ever really thought about is now at the top of the list, and with the remote learners and making sure that they have the supports. As a parent, it's hard. You're trying to adjust to Zoom meetings for work and then also supporting your child in their learning online. And so our family navigators will be assisting these families. Also, continuing to support and bringing together the organizations that support food access. Lamond has done an amazing job with making sure that every resident of Norwalk has access to food, and that the children of Norwalk don't go without. And so there's been lots of activities in making sure that we as a city and all of the nonprofits are getting together and making sure that we're able to distribute that as efficiently as possible. And then also, staying on top of what's going on with COVID and making sure that we're organizing and having enough testing sites available, so that it could just be something that people know that they can go to on the weekend. So trying to be consistent with having testing sites available. So it's been a full 6 weeks, very exciting work. I've already started getting calls from members of the community with questions and needs and connecting them with resources. A lot of Spanish speakers that I've been able to assist directly, which has been really great, and being able to follow up and then them calling to say that they got connected, with services. So that's, that makes me feel like, the word is getting out there, and people know to call the city. I've gotten calls from other departments because people know to come to City Hall for help. And so now we have a department that really can connect them to the services here in Norwalk. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So I just want to remind the committee that through the Dalio Foundation and the Ritter Foundation and the Heinrich Foundation, we received the Connectivity Initiative. And so the family navigators that Maria is referring to, she will be supervising 5 grant-funded positions, and their main charge is to help families who are remote just understand everything. It's not just about the connectivity, while that is important to make sure they're connected. Through the Dalio Foundation, we are able to identify 1,000 families, and the Dalio Foundation will be funding hardwired internet in their homes. But the other piece that Maria will be supervising is that beyond the connectivity, families need help. And so the family navigators will be just that. They will be helping families navigate, where do I get help? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? So we have identified the 5, 2 are on board, and Maria, I think the other 3 will be coming shortly. So that will be fully up and running. Again, this is just another service that through the Community Services Department that will be sorting residents, specifically families during this time who are, because of COVID, because of the connectivity issues and because of needs, they will have that support emanating out of our department. And then the last thing I want to just elevate before you, through you all approved 2 part-time positions that now that Maria is on, I can move forward. It's just been prioritizing. And that's going to be that other key piece that, as I spoke with you many times before COVID, one of my main goals was, I believe that the city hall is that hub, if you will, for many things. And I also wanted it to be a hub where people can come and say, if I need help, where do I go? So now that Maria is on board, we're going to now start that process to hire those 2 part-time individuals. And that's their job, that residents in the city of Norwalk will have a department, a number, a real person, not a push 2 for this and a push 3 for this, a real live person to help them navigate. We are researching all the social service programs. We're putting it into inventory, cataloging it so that when residents call it all electronically, I want to use as much as technology as possible. So there are great things to come, and I look forward to updating you over the next several months of how the department is forming and how we're serving the constituents and residents of Norwalk. So thank you very much, and I'll yield back to you, Madam Chair.
I actually have a question, if we could go back to
Sure.
the internet and the family navigators.
Sure.
Where exactly are we at in that process? You've hired the family navigators.
Yes.
And are they beginning to work with the families? I mean, we're well into the school year now. So
Yes. So we'll do 2 pieces. I'll do the school piece, and then Maria, you can do the family navigators. So the schools, the Norwalk Public Schools identify the family. So we're not a part of that. So once Norwalk Public Schools identify the families through their system, through the principal goes through the IT department, Maria now will have information for those families, and the family navigators will then reach out to those individuals. And then Maria, you can tell where you are with that, and then what you continue to anticipate of how you all will be serving the families once we get the referral from Norwalk Public Schools.
So we have 2 navigators who've already been onboarded and have completed most of the training. And they have already begun to contact families who have been confirmed to have received the internet hardwired into their homes. So they've started to contact families just to confirm that the internet is working. If they have any questions, we've gotten calls or responses of parents just not understanding how to log into PowerSchool. So we've assisted with, how to log into PowerSchool, who to contact. We've had some families say that they were just having some issues with the internet, so they were able to assist them with resolving those issues. And then some families that they've contacted have already said, can you start helping me now? And so the family navigators have jumped in and started assisting. And some of the requests we've gotten is, very basic things like food. Is there a place where I can get food? So they've been communicating about the food distribution programs. They had one mom who wanted some help with getting a resume. She's out of work. And so she decided that this is the time, to start working on it. And so she was asking for assistance with updating her resume. We've had another mom who is overwhelmed. She's a single mom of 3 boys, one who has a disability. And so she just needed assistance with, mental health. She just felt like she just needed some extra support. So I was working with her to getting connected to behavioral health services. And she was concerned with one of her sons who just doesn't seem engaged. She doesn't know if he's doing his work because she's still confused on how everything works. So the navigators have been contacting families. They are getting questions and connecting some of these families with services. We've also, because of some of the questions we've gotten, realized that we're so focused on food and so focused on things that we expected, but resume workshops and trying to navigate other areas has come up. So they've really hit the ground running as well. and have connected with these families.
And if I can add, I think what's going to happen is, I mean, 1,000 families is a good representation to at least to begin to think about what are the issues and what are the trends and patterns that family are struggling with. So for example, one of the things that when Maria talked about resume, if we hear many families talking about that, that is a really good possibility that through our department, we can work with some partners to say, hey, we've identified 30 individuals that is interested in resume writing. Can we host a Zoom resume writing call? So again, the whole intent is not only to meet them where they are, but identify these larger issues so we can, again, fill in the gaps. That's how I see the department. The nonprofits are doing amazing work, but I think everyone will agree that there still are gaps in services. This department now has that bird's eye, eagle's eye view to really see and look at where those gaps are, where can we plug in, and how can we help families thrive?
Thank you. You know, when we talk about disproportionality, you know, it's so great in Norwalk. The need is so great, and I think a lot of people don't really quite realize how great it is. And so this is, you know, this establishes and improves equity for all of our students. So thank you for your work. Anyone have questions? Yes, Ms. Revelous.
I just, may I ask, how many different languages are you, in the families are you servicing? Like
So
how
right
many
now-
different languages are you coming?
Sure. So right now, out of the 1,000 families, 80% is Spanish speaking. We are excited that Maria was able to hire a Haitian Creole, but because this is through the city, we have access to the language learning program. So if there is a language that the navigators are not or don't know how to speak or access, they have access because this is through the city that they can dial and actually have that conversation with the family.
So you will,
service.
when you say language, like the language line?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So
all right.
yeah. And two
Okay.
of the family navigators are Spanish speaking. They're bilingual Spanish, and then one is Haitian Creole. Speaks
So
Haitian
the
Creole.
80% being Spanish, understanding, what's the breakdown of the other 20%?
So we have Haitian Creole and then English speakers. The navigators so far have not encountered any one who speaks another language, but we're still accepting families. So I anticipate that we're going to be adding the language, you know, to other languages.
Thank you. And I'm glad you guys are
You.
using the language line.
Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to also welcome Maria. I believe it was week 2 that she was on board, and I asked her to join me on a radio discussion with La Voz, which is the largest Spanish-speaking radio station in Western Connecticut, and actually Connecticut. And she did an outstanding job. So Lamond, if you don't give enough work, she has a very promising career in radio and TV because she got so many compliments for the work that the information that she shared with the community services and what's going on and what's going to be offered. So much praises for the what she did and how she communicated this important service.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Any other questions for Maria? All right, well, a hearty welcome, and it's good to know you've hit the ground running, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, back to Lamond for under Community Services, item B, an update on the progress of the Equity and Justice for All Commission.
Yes, thank you. Let me I have my notes on my laptop, so give me one moment. So I spoke with Madam President and wanted to share with both the committee and also those that may be watching this tonight or in the future, because I myself have been receiving inquiries around where we are with the Equity, Justice, and Commission for All. And the first thing I want to say is that we're still moving in the right direction. This is a process, and we know that 5 months ago, we all witnessed on TV the George Floyd murder. And then I think a month after, or very shortly after, the mayor hosted a community town hall. And then that's where he announced the creation of the Norwalk Equity and Justice Commission. And so I wanted to just give a brief update of where we are with the commission, what work has been done, so the public and you as the committee know what's going on and where we are. And so I think one of the first things that I've been saying to those inquiry is that, and sometimes I have to remind myself that, I don't work for a corporation in that respect, or a nonprofit, because the difference between seeking a contract, we have a formal bidding process, and there are a lot of rules and processes, which is a good thing, that we have to follow. So we just can't go out and just say, I would like you to be, to work with me. So as a government entity, that means we had to solicit bids from verifiable companies. And so unlike the private business or nonprofits, we do have strict guidelines. And so the mayor and I spoke. We did a town hall at the end of June, early July. And unfortunately, we only received 2 applications. The applications went out at the end of July. We did a 3-week period, and we only received 3. The proposals did take longer than we anticipated, but also it was important that we get it right. And so it was not only drafted both by my office, but we also solicited feedback from our colleagues or partners over at Norwalk Acts. We've asked other large philanthropy organizations out of Connecticut to review the documentation. And we also worked with the Anti-Defamation League to kind of look at the RFP to make sure that we covered everything, but also to make sure it articulated exactly what we're doing, and to give us feedback and consultation on the RFP process itself. And so as a timeline, we were able to garner and selected the 7-person selection committee, and they met in September, which included myself and local leaders, and the Madam President also represents the Common Council on it. And due to the bids, when we reviewed them, one was, I had like an inflated budget, and the other one, while it was good, it just lacked an experience. And so the committee decided that we would like to go out to rebid. And I may have said to this group, to this committee, that we received like almost 25 inquiries. So what that means is that we can track who actually opened up the bid, who started the bid, but then who didn't submit the bid. So that was interesting to me, because we had 25 organizations or firms was interested, opened and started, but didn't respond. And so what we did during this time between September and now, we actually reached out and wanted to learn, hey, you opened it, you started filling it out, what was it? And one of the things that they did talk about is, because we didn't put a budget in, we wanted to say, hey, what would you think? But now the feedback is that we need to kind of at least put a budget range, because that's a standard and that's a practice. And many of the organizations said that they were uncomfortable submitting a proposal without a range. The second thing that came up in talking with those that was interested in submitting but didn't, they also talked about, we gave them 3 weeks, and in hindsight, the time frame should have been longer. So they said it was just, for a 3-week period to write an extensive RFP, they just needed more time. So that was a second lesson learned. And then the other third thing is, for those organizations that are doing equity work, they're in high demand right now. So they, quite frankly, they can be selective if they wanted to. And so many of them said that, not having the budget, not having a time frame, having a short time frame, that they thought that, they can look other places. And so with that feedback, and both having the selection committee review the board, we are in the process of making tweaks. We are in the process of identifying, again, talking with those in the field to suggest, based on the RFP, what would be, a respectable budget in terms of this type of work, because we are looking for a firm that will work with us for a year, work on a macro scale, so working with city, and help us think through these issues that are very important to us, that the mayor has made a commitment to. So where we are right now is reviewing the input from the selection committee. And I just want to say, we want to get this right. I think it's important that we take our time, but keep moving. And I really feel strongly that's exactly what we're doing. And so now that we have our new partners on helping us look at it, identifying what is a good budget, we're hoping to get the selection committee together for kind of their final approval. And then we'll rebid with the recommendations, with the budget, extending it longer, giving people a little bit more time to complete it. And then we're hopeful. And we also made some other tweaks around smaller agencies because people didn't know, can they come in as two? It was an inexperienced firm that had the community organizing, but didn't have the larger municipality experience. Well, they didn't know that they can come together, hey, as 2 or 3 partners to apply. So there's some things that we are in the process of tweaking. And so we're going to bring the selection committee back together and look at it and make those tweaks and look at those recommendations so that we feel this time around we can really have a good product, a good RFP that will make it really, really well written, that an organization will say, hey, I like what they're doing, I like what they're thinking. I would like to help work with the city of Norwalk around these issues. So that's where we are as it relates to the Equity and Justice Commission. I just want the public to know that we're still moving, but there have been a lot of lessons learned because this is all new for us. The city hasn't embarked in this way in this RFP. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll definitely, if there's any clarifying questions, I'll be happy to do so.
I'm going to ask you actually to backtrack even a little bit more. We've talked about it in this committee, we've talked about it, when we first got the conversations going, but I do still get questions from the public about, why we're choosing to hire a consultant to help us form this commission. So I think it's worth stating publicly again, so that people can really understand, because I think that there is some frustration that, even though we know we're moving in the background, but I think, a lot of people would like to see more movement.
Yeah, and I'll hope I can respond and answer it that people can understand. I mean, these are some real complex issues. And we felt very strongly, and then the research is actually just best practices. It shouldn't be city employees facilitating this. It should be an independent organization with the expertise of how you talk about equity and justice issues. And, the mayor and felt strongly is that, let's hire a firm or folks or individuals that do that. This is their expertise. They work with cities and municipalities that do this work. And so for that reason alone, which is why we decided to take this route, as opposed to, if you will, do it in-house, because I think the argument on the in-house could be bias, or are you really serious? And I think for me, I think the public sees that, the city is committed to putting dollars to this. So I hope those that are not understanding why we took this route, that this is an investment. This is not a one-off. The mayor is committed to also making this a commission beyond his tenure as mayor. So this would be institutionalized in how we do business. And so this takes time. We don't have experts that do this every day. So let's bring in the experts to make sure we get this right. And I can also tell you, that's what our other colleagues do. Norwalk Public Schools brought in an expert. They're working on the equity lens. Norwalk Acts, our large collective impact, they brought in an expert, and they actually consulted with us, and we're actually working with them that the work that we're going to do from a city perspective, how it's very complementary to the work that Norwalk Acts is doing, and also to the work under the new superintendent, Dr. Estrella. So they brought in experts as well. So we decided that it'd be important for us to not try to do it in-house, but to really seek outside expertise to help us move this along. And through our bidding process, it is taking a little bit longer as anticipated. I hope that answers or settles some.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 400 years of oppression and systemic racism, institutional racism that, it's going to take a long time to dismantle. And, we do want to dig in and get it right. We want to get it right. So any other questions? Ms. Revolus?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just quick question. I know that they normally work with nonprofits, but have we talked to the pro bono partner, the pro bono lawyers? Because they're actually, even back from when, from as long and as little as as young as I was a child, sorry. They were a part of a lot of organizations doing these exact same things, and they've worked with even with other Norwalk organizations and entities, and they might be able to offer some consultation and help on the fact that we are an organization and that that's what they do on a pro bono, right?
That
Has
has
that
not
been
been my
looked into
experience.
at all?
Oh,
Oh, no?
pro
Yeah, I've
bono.
had them, we use them a lot.
Well, this is
The
a
pro
large
bono
project,
partners, I think
so
it is.
well, I would definitely, if I would most certainly entertain if you can forward information. But this is extensive and comprehensive. So I don't know if we can garner pro bono work for something this extensive and comprehensive.
No, I mean, bringing them to the table to help if they are a pro bono situation, since it's such a mess, whatever you can get from that, in a sense. if
Sure,
that makes sense.
I would entertain it if you forward the contact information. I think we're willing to talk to whoever to really move the work along. So most certainly,
Okay,
so if you can forward a contact,
I'll email you.
sure.
Okay,
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
no problem.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Burnett?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Lamont, I understand what you're saying in terms of trying to get it right. But I think speed and momentum are needed now and not later. And I think if we wait till we get the right company to come in and build a long list of action items and meetings and discussions and recommendations, it could be another 400 years. I think we need to start looking at chunking the issues and trying to get some momentum and traction now, as opposed to trying to get it all right, because I just don't think we'll ever get it all right. We can begin to look at what are some of the systemic issues within Norwalk and begin chunking them, chopping them off and say, well, let's take a look at this area and let's take a look at this area concurrently with trying to get a company to do the bigger picture. And right now, I think there's a level of frustration because nothing's being done. Nothing is being done. And that in itself is very frustrating. And I say nothing is being done in terms of actions. I understand the RFP is one track, but I think there's other things that we can be doing to keep the issues at the forefront, to generate momentum so that when we do identify a company, they can build on that piece of work that is already in place.
Yeah, Councilman, I agree with you. I think I would probably reframe it a little bit differently. I alluded to, but didn't expound on it. We're working very closely with Norwalk Acts, the team that brought in. Matter of fact, many of us are participating in the work that they're doing because they really hold a large piece of this work as well. Bringing in the equity professional, I don't know the organization's name. And as I pointed out, that the work that we're embarking on, it was important for us to not just start something new, because I think, you know, in my humble opinion, you know, having all these three equity issues going on, I think it needs to be a concerted effort, both from the Norwalk Public Schools position, both from the Norwalk Acts, which is pretty much will be many of the same partners that through this larger citywide effort we'll be working with. So that work is moving. And I think once we bring in the commission, it will be a nice fit into the work that through Jennifer's leadership at Norwalk Acts that they're already doing, because they both have private, public, and community folks at the table. And I was on the equity training, and it was well over 100 people with a good representation cross sector from all fields and folks. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm happy to talk further about this. but I don't know if I would categorize as nothing is being done.
You know, I have a couple thoughts here. And I think that there are things being done, you know, like you just said, Lamond. Norwalk Public Schools is doing a lot. Norwalk Acts, which I've recently tapped into. I mean, the work that they're doing is extraordinary. I'd also like to note that that Mr. Sacchinelli and the Health and Public Safety Committee have begun a cadence of reporting out from the police department, and Mr. Sacchinelli might want to take a minute to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm actually involved in that peripheral as well.
And so I think there are things being done. And I don't want to forget to point out, the Norwalk Housing Authority and moving towards more affordable housing. I mean, it's a fight, it's a struggle, but we are moving in the right direction there. So I think it's really more a matter of communication, getting the word out there that there are we are moving in the right direction in some areas. Nick, do you want to add anything?
And if I could just quickly respond, I think that's a good suggestion. That's where, again, my office can kind of help, kind of put together something. I can work with those that are doing this work to say, this is what Norwalk is doing, and then how the Equity and Justice Commission will kind of fit into what's happening. Because I'm very conscious when I'm not doing something separate, because that's not effective. It's really bringing all groups together to really look at these issues. And the Equity and Justice Commission is one piece of it. It's not the end all be all, and it's not going to answer everything, which really excites me. Norwalk Acts through looking from a systems policy, the Norwalk Public Schools looking at how children of color fare through their educational system, and then you have this larger umbrella, the Equity and Justice for All Commission. So maybe my takeaway is bringing all pieces together, so maybe we can then articulate it to the city as a whole, how these three threads really fit into the larger issues, but we're all taking a piece of it in a different way, but it's all interconnected. I don't know if that makes sense. Does it make sense?
Mr. Sacchinelli, go ahead.
Madam Chair, just to follow up to your point, yeah, we are trying to offer a higher level of transparency through the emergency services departments, and we're doing so publicly by offering the broadest of agenda items, as but sometimes the public doesn't always know that they cannot come out to speak unless a topic is on the agenda. And what we've been doing is we've been keeping a agenda topic so broad as police discussion, fire discussion, health discussion. So any topics that the public would like to address can be brought up. If appropriate, we field the questions on the fly, and we have this cadence going monthly at this point. So this is to open up additional transparency to the public of the processes that we are trying to implement, and fielding the questions and concerns as they come up.
That's great.
Mr. Burnett, do you think that you're hearing some positive in that?
I'm not energized yet. I'm really not energized yet. I mean, I hear fragments. I don't hear a cohesive effort. And if we're waiting for this RFP to come through and for a meeting to decide on the meeting as to who's going to select the committee gets started. Again, I'm just concerned that we're months away, if not years away, from any productive outcome. And I think we can take a step back and again, take a chunk of an issue. You don't have to resolve the whole ball of wax in one shot, because it's not going to happen that way. You have to take a specific sector of what is taking place and try to gain a win in that one specific area that will bring momentum to other areas. And I don't see that activity taking place.
Well, if I could respond, but that just to your point, the sectors that is happening, Norwalk Public Schools through their equity firm is looking at how children of color fare, and then identify the appropriate strategies to design an intervention.
Okay,
that is a sector, so that's children.
Well, Norwalk Public Schools, and maybe it's my ignorance, and I'll admit that, but I'm not seeing what they're doing. I'm not getting the information in terms of the activities that they're doing. If anyone else is, raise your hand and you can share it with me, but I'm not seeing what they're doing.
Well, that's a different discussion. I can't speak to all the totality, but that's what I was sharing, that I'm more than willing to take on that role to kind of pull the pieces together. And I'd be more than delighted to report back to the group as we continue the process of identifying a firm for the commission. And to your point, right, the commission is not going to do everything either. It's really in concert of what's already happening. But again, I'll be more than delighted to, maybe we gotta bring Jennifer and or the Norwalk Public Schools team that's overseeing to kind of give some more clarity. I'm definitely not the expert on all the pieces, but I'm involved. So I can't speak to the ins and outs, but I am very aware that through the Equity and Justice Commission that we're doing RFP, part of the RFP is that they will be connecting the dots with the existing work, not just going down some path without knowing what's already been happening in the city.
I think something we can talk about is, is having someone from Norwalk Public Schools come and present to the Community Services Committee exactly what they're doing and what outcomes they're seeing. Norwalk Acts, they presented to the Democratic Caucus, but they can come and present to this committee and really discuss. I mean, their work is extraordinary. It's really, really extraordinary. So maybe that's something we can do to shed the light on it and and make people aware. Mr. Roberts, go ahead.
I think that I'm understanding what everybody is saying, and I do understand as far as what Greg is saying as well. In a sense, it's more so. I mean, I don't know if everybody has their ears or feet to the streets of what's going on in Norwalk. And we talk about the commission, RFP process, and that so forth. It's a lot of people that still ask like, "Hey, so how is this going?" It's a lot of people that don't have computers, guys. It's a lot of people that don't know these conversations are even occurring. George Floyd died in June. It's now October. We got kids that got kicked out of school already because they don't have computers or they don't understand how to do the work. We got officers, that were relieved from duty recently for situations that occurred in the city, and kids that have died due to officers' situations. There's things that are happening in the city right now that a lot of people aren't really, seeing. And I understand everybody's frustration. I see the transparency and everything. I do feel like sometimes, these conversations need to happen in a total different aspect. We can give questions. We can ask the chief to, solidify the questions to us. But it's a different ball game. We had 200 and some change people in that town hall. If we had another town hall, we probably would have 20 people because people don't know what's going on. People were fired up legit 5-6 months ago. And now people are very frustrated because they don't have the information. And I'm not saying, I could say it's a lack on me as a city official, not getting them to the, to the computers and stuff like that. But in a sense, I feel like we all got to play our part. And people are really struggling. People really are frustrated because honestly, I wake up every day, I see another person in a situation that looks like me, and we don't know what to do as far as who to go to, what are our resources. So I do understand what everybody is talking about. I respect it, but it happened in June. Now we really got to, push the needle forward and have these conversations. I was thankful that Lamont, the mayor, the chief, that first ever town hall we had was amazing. It was amazing. The questions we answered, this, that, and the third. And we pitched forth that effort to say we're going to do the equality for justice situation. The questions were, oh, we're going to get passes on here. We need to know, we know the process, but the average person in Connecticut that lives in public housing, that go through situations like this, they don't know anything. And it kind of is frustrating, but at the same sense, I just want to make sure, it's equality and justice for everybody, and that's the main course, So I think we all need to make sure we put our minds to it, a little bit more, and let's get to it. And I'm open to everything. I'm here. So just let me know.
If that town hall was so successful, yeah, just one second. If that town hall was so successful, then maybe that's something that still needs to be happening on a regular basis, once a month even. So I think that that's something we, Lamond, maybe we could follow up with the mayor and see about making sure that that's something that happens regularly. Ms. Revolus and then Mr. Sacchinelli.
I just wanted to double back on some of the things said, and also being, especially with that engagement. A lot of engagement will happen when, like we are saying, things start moving and happening. For example, in Norwalk Acts, we already know that our children are having problems. For example, Black boys in the school system. So as we're working, if we're pinpointing something there and actually moving on that, and you see like this child is doing this and we're changing in the school or this and that, whatever, and they're engaging, those type of involvements in situations will spread the word like wildfire, will get people engaged. These are the things I think Monsieur Chair is talking about, doing, even if it's not, it should be in the courtrooms, we need it right now, but something like right now with Norwalk Acts, we have identified what's wrong with our children in the schools right now, okay? What are we doing right now? Not talking or dancing around it, but what active steps are we doing right now? Once parents and those children themselves starts experiencing those changes, those parents and children will be the first to talk. Those parents and children will be the first to bring the other parents and children in to have those meetings and make it continue to be 60, 70, 80, because it will be the active change and word of mouth that will spread it faster than anything. So I think as you guys are developing, we already have pinpointed situations we can work with right now to give what Mr. Chair was saying, Mr. Burnett was saying, and how, and actually answering the feel of nothing's going on with what we already have and know. Is that a possibility? For Mr. Lamont? You find that something that we can start trying to do? Like Norwalk Acts has already twice released the disparities of our children in schools, twice. We have the under two different superintendents. So we can, in education for Black children, can move right now on that. Do you feel that there's a way in doing that?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of Norwalk Acts.
True. No, not Norwalk Acts. I mean, Norwalk Acts has reported it, for example.
Yeah, but
so there's data to that. Is it possible?
I think anything is impossible, but I think there's something that's not being spoken about. I think there's resources, Council, that my department can do a lot, but I think, we're talking about resources, and Greg, I want to address this, we could bite off. That's why I specifically, and I know this is, this part I don't do that well. I think what is important to understand is that the question becomes about capacity and resources. And so that's why it was my recommendation to the mayor to say, if we're going to do this, we need to hire a professional team. That's not me. And again, as you alluded, you said this is 400 of history and work. So it was my recommendation that we need to hire, there are professionals, there are experts that do this work. I do agree with you. It is taking a little bit longer. I can say publicly, I'm disappointed that it's taken longer than I personally anticipated. I wrote the original RFP, but the process is the process. Then we had dates change, and there's a bidding process. If the bidding person is not at the meeting, you can't have the meeting. So there's a lot of moving parts that is just beyond the control. And to your point around taking out a bite who can chew, I really feel strongly that that is occurring through the Norwalk Public Schools piece and through the work of Norwalk Acts. They're doing some fine work already. I mean, I meet weekly with Jennifer Axe in a supportive role as a thought leader, kind of advising them of how they tackle the issues, and then the schoolwork that through the Norwalk Public Schools. So I think anything is possible. It's just a matter of bandwidth and capacity to keep moving these things about. What I have, like I was going to share with you, I just fed 5,404 people. You all know my department is me. I mean, and when I just brought Maria on, so while I appreciate the passion, and trust me, I think you all know I'm a hype man. I got a lot of energy, but the question really becomes resources. So I really put it back on you all to say, as we think about budget, I need funding. I can clearly articulate goals, plans, and how the impact would be to really move some of these things along if you want it to happen fairly quickly. The process is the process. However, my job is to monitor it and try to keep it moving to the extent I can. I think we also have to keep in mind that we're in COVID. And you know, we're up 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night trying to figure out, we're, you know, so there's a lot of moving pieces. So, but I think we got to look at it from a context perspective, recognizing these are real issues. We all saw what happened, but we are moving in the right direction. And I can sleep with my head to say, every day I give 100% to the city of Norwalk and all that I have been tasked to do.
Thank you. And we really appreciate it, Lamond. I want you to know that. Mr. Sacchinelli.
I think I was last to put my hand up. I think David was up first, but.
I thought you had it up before when Mr. Evelus did, so. That's
Sorry, Ray, I know you're ready to go.
Whoever.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Lamont, can you, so first of all, you talked about resources. What resources do you feel you would need come a new budget cycle? And then what bandwidth do you currently have? So, I mean, I understand you're stretched thin. Is there an opportunity for some creative outreach? And I'm specifically thinking, Kadeem spoke to me, Kadeem's comment spoke to me about the fact that we do have resources in place that we might not be getting to some of the people that need it just based on accessibility and availability. Is there an opportunity, something that might be non-traditional outreach? Like I'm thinking outside of like a radio spot or something. I don't know what kind of outreach we would need to get through to that community that doesn't have access to a computer on a regular basis, but something that we could do a little bit more immediately that would speak to the resources that we already have in place.
I would need to think about that. I'm not prepared to kind of really dive, kind of figure out what would work. But so I'm just not prepared to just off the limb kind of identify what that might look like.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mr. Hooverman?
Ms. Johnson is on the committee. If she wants to speak first, that's fine.
No, you go, David. That's good. We're going to.
I appreciate that.
We'll find out.
Madam Chair, it's interesting listening to this. The sense that I'm hearing, the thing that I'm hearing here right now is a certain level of frustration, and the frustration is what's macro and what's micro in all of this, and that. The Mr. Roberts, speaks to very, very eloquently about, how many months we are away from an event that happened that sparked this commission, the idea of this commission. And Mr. Burnett speaks about what I have sensed and what I have heard, which is the perception of a lack of action. And I think that's the problem, and that it's whether I get the RFP process and I get the bureaucratic sort of mundaneness that has to happen in order to get to a place. But the problem is that the people are looking for something to cling to that is happening. And we've referenced the public schools, and we've referenced the Norwalk Acts, and it's the same amount of time from the event that sparked all of this, and they're involved in action. And we're not yet involved in visible action. And so if there's something that can be done to say, if the idea is that this commission is to draw all of these ideas and all of what is being found together and basically bring it to the forefront, then we need to say that that's what's going on and let the people know, because the people, our constituents right now, are asking, why is the city not doing anything? And they see Norwalk Acts doing a racial equity commission, and they see the public schools having focus groups with Dr. The name just went out of my head.
Yeah, I can't remember it
And
myself.
Fergus,
so the
Dr.
idea
Fergus.
of all of that is happening, it's actionable. And I think that Mr. Burnett's frustration comes from the idea that we're not looking at actionable. So if you need to split it up into smaller groups so that we can start working on something, people want to see that. But if we can tell people what we are working on, I think that would go a long way to moving this forward and allowing the process to be the process.
If Madam Chair, if I could respond, I really loved how you articulated that. And I remember when I talked about it from the beginning, I remember saying, we're gonna have to manage people's expectations because this is not micro. So you hit it and you articulated better than me. I think there's an assumption that the piece, and I'll give you the RFP. I don't even know if you all as the committee have read the RFP so you can know what's in it. And I think that may help manage expectations as well. And that's something I can gladly, well, it's online, but I can gladly share it with you that it's not programmatic. And I think you all remember when I first came in, I said one of the things that the nonprofits community said, we don't want the city doing programs, leave that up to the nonprofits, but really a thought leader, systems change, policies changes. That's what the department is presently. If we want to go into some of the traditional social servicey programs similar to other cities, then that's a different conversation in the future. But remember, the Norwalk, my department is not designed that way, and neither was that a goal, at least as my understanding is coming on in this new role, to actually have people running programs. It was the bringing, coordinating, coming together. I'm a thought leader with Norwalk Act. So before Jennifer makes a move, me through the city is giving consultation what that might look like and how does that make sense for the larger city. And we do that on a regular basis.
Which is exciting stuff. I think that if that's part of this process, the public needs to know that
I agree with you 100%.
And right now, I think that the frustration that exists is that the public is not seeing the process. And to go to what Mr. Roberts spoke of earlier, they're frustrated, and they're also, we're seeing things every day in the national media that is frightening to a lot of people.
And I think too, I'm sorry. I think too.
I just think
yeah,
that we need to
I
get
agree.
that word out. We need to be better at telling people what it is that we're doing.
And I think those in the field will caution us that, again, while we all witness this situation, we still have to stay the course. So we have to manage what happened, what we all observed, but also stay the course. Because again, I always get these things mixed up. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And so I think we got to be careful that, oh my God, this happened, we got to move. We're moving. Do we all wish it was a little bit faster? I do too, but we are moving. But to your point, how could we articulate that to the constituents? That's most certainly, I would like to, explore further and think of a strategy to do that. I think that's very important because the public has a right to know.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate your response.
Thank you.
Mr. Hooverman, you touched on something that goes back to, talking about the national news and that we're, bombarded with everything that's going on. There's a real problem with local news. Local news has died. I mean, it's died. We have no broadcast. We have no local broadcast media. We have very little reliable local news, print media. And this is it's a real problem in this country because so much happens at the local level and people are not getting the information. I've talked about this in this committee about my frustrations about this. We used to have public service announcements. We used to have, there was so much information to the local people that's just vanished. it's vanished. And so it needs to be reinvented. So it's, you know, I don't think we're the only people, the only city, you know, struggling with this kind of thing. It's, you know, I'm going back to, you know, hiring a communications manager, why I supported that. And I think that, you know, maybe that's not, you know, we can tap into Josh in terms of getting some of the information out. But again, it's a lot of that social media. You know, I rack my brain over it. I would love it if we had, you know, a local radio station, you know, with local news, with local information. It would really benefit the people. So anyway, it's the thought I had.
With media, Madam Chair, I think that's so true. And even to the local advertisement too, like things, a lot of people, like you just said, not, yes, it could be on social media, but not a lot of us are on social media. But you know, the same people you're trying to get who's not on social media, they ride the bus. They'll see those things on the bus, or if they're walking, or if they're in the grocery stores, tack something on those walls, they might see it. I think advertising in local media is definitely a big thing, Madam Chair. I think that's very poignant to point out. But stuff like that, true. I swear, it's, you don't know how big just putting something on the side of one of those dumpsters or putting it in the bus or something like that can just get people aware. I know it's and I know the ticket is always because it costs something. I definitely know, but it is very effective because those are where your people are. You know what I mean? But no, I know it's a cost, it's an expense, but I think you have a brilliant point right there.
You know, and I mean, I'm, you know, coming from 15 years in the radio industry, so I'm coming from a background with that lens. But, you know, broadcast media was required in both radio and television to offer public service time for free to, you know, to government, to agencies, to, you know, to the public. So it's really a problem. All right, hold on, guys, because I want to get to Ms. Johnson because she had her hand up before. So let's go there first. Go ahead.
All good. I don't want to divert away from the talk of media, so hopefully, Councilman Roberts, that was not what you were going to say, but oh, we're good. All right. I do want to follow up, though, with Councilman Huvelman, Burnett, and their points. And I completely understand the need for parallel processing here. We are talking about long-term versus short-term. And so I think this communication piece, it will be very crucial. I have heard from a lot of folks that the frustration also stems from the fact that there is a bit of community memory, even amongst young people who remember the 1993 Blue Ribbon Commission. And they remember the findings, and they've even been able to find it on the internet and read it if they don't remember. And because of what's in there, and I understand that's like quite a long time ago, but there are things in there that we literally could use as a blueprint for what we need to do now. And I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of that is still on the 2021 report or 2022 report. So I'm saying that because I think that's also part of the frustration is there's this understanding that we kind of already know some of the things we need to do. And for me, for example, it would be like affordable childcare options. It could be workplace training, especially for the skilled trades, for folks who are, you know, constantly underserved in that pipeline. And I know in the past we've had issue with folks outside of Norwalk being in a better position in terms of training to get those jobs. We know that back in '93, they were highly recommending a police community commission, I think was the term. And so we know these things already, right? And so while that may be, the last one may be a more long-term thing because it could require us figuring out, you know, who is, you know, how that's able to work according to maybe the charter or some kind of system that the mayor is and the chief is all right with that setup. And, you know, again, that may be more long-term. But I think this, I say this because I think there are things that we as a council can and should be doing on the policy side. And so perhaps that is what I'm offering as the contribution tonight, is that I think we as a council don't necessarily need to wait for the commission to do certain things. And I'm totally for that. And I think we should explore it as a council. And even this committee is a place where we can start these conversations about those things that we already know that are likely either going to be findings, maybe even central findings, and it won't hinder the long term because we're going to do the policy piece that we know we need to do now. So I don't necessarily have a question. That was obviously just me more communicating what I've heard from folks in the community, but I also feel that I assume we all are going to be partners in it, and that obviously we would lean on you really heavily, Lamond, and Maria, for your expertise on this as ears to the ground.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, may I respond?
Please.
Thank you. I've read the 1993 report in its entirety. In fact, as part of the RFP, we've asked them to use this as the blueprint. And as you look through it, and that's 93, so that's a long time. I can tell you anecdotally, and I can bring back as much information as you all like. So you mentioned affordable childcare. Norwalk has made great strides in the past 20 years in early childhood. In fact, we have the data, I'm going to say 75%, maybe be higher. 75% of all kindergartners that enter our school system have had an early childhood experience. That is outstanding, because we know children who have early childhood experiences do better off in school. So there's a lot of metrics that we have that I can kind of circle back. I think the other issue you point out is about the work employment. And I may have shared it with the group in, kind of my assessment. Bridgeport and Stanford are the hubs for a lot of the larger programs. And so as a resident of Norwalk, while the service exists, if you want job training, you have to go to Bridgeport. If you want a certain another service, you have to go to Stanford. Well, I'm in conversations with many of those larger organizations because Norwalk is their catchment area, really advocating and lobbying, saying, why aren't you not in Norwalk? Because it's a barrier to catch a train or a taxi or Uber or just drive. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Because we know what needs to be done in order to serve our constituents. But we got to just figure out how to articulate that in a way that both you all know what's going on, and then the public also is aware of what's happening as well. So I just, out of those two issues, because I knew I had those metric points are being worked on, and that's Mary Oster. I mean, and we are noted as the model for early childhood in our state.
Mr. Roberts.
First, I just want to clear the air, Lamont. This is healthy conversation, everybody. And I just want to clear the air on that. Lamont, your team does a marvelous job. Let's clear the air on that now. Because when people watch this, I don't want nobody to feel like we're aiming at Lamont. We're not doing that right now.
No, I'm not taking it that way, but I think we got to have honest conversation, though.
Absolutely. And your team does a wonderful job. We talk on a regular basis when I contact you about food drives, whatever the case may be. I feel like, when we talked about advertisement, communication, things of that nature, I think we just got to go back to the old school. And I sit down with you, Lamont, and your team as well. And just, majority of these housing projects, the people that come from the bottom, they have like legit buildings where they have community centers in those housing projects. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get back to the basics where we'll knock on some doors and say, hey, listen, we're having a community engagement aspect. And it could be our meeting there that day. You guys want to come down and ask community questions, things of that nature. Like it has to get back to where it needs to be. I only brought my conversation up because recently a family reached out to me and their son was killed in Norwalk recently. And the case was dismissed. So they said, hey, what do I do? And that was the main thing. That's why I'm bringing the conversation to us. Like, where do we move forward? Who do we contact? Who do we try to get in contact with? So, I appreciate all the work that everybody does. Like we said, let's just, move forward and put our heads together,
Mr. Sacchinelli.
I want to circle back to there was an interesting conversation that Ms. Revolus and you had brought up. Maybe we do have an opportunity for some type of classic. So the concept of putting some type of marketing content on the side of the buses is expensive. But if we make some type of investment in the city and have Alan Lowen look into critical locations of city property that we already own, we can make an investment into like a digital signage. We could put our content up as needed in the most highly traversed areas, and we could be strategic and make sure that different communities have access to this type of information. And then we could recoup the investment by rendering time as advertisement for some type of local business if it happens to be positioned in that way. So if it's a digital signage, our content's up for 15 minutes and then it flashes to somebody's advertisement, and we have a path of revenue to recoup that as well. I think we should actually pass that to Alan Lowe, to the land use committee, to look at some strategic locations, kind of push that idea forward.
Brilliant idea.
It's a very good idea.
Really brilliant idea. I'll definitely reach out to Alan. Great idea, Nick. Thank you. Brainstorming session. Anyone else? Okay, there's a lot of passion and a lot of commitment behind this. And, this is a council that really cares about equity and justice for all. And, we want to see action. So this was a good
and if I can, because this is personal for me as well. So let me be very clear on that. And I want to close with this. I was at a meeting and I decided to drive myself to Rootner Court. I got out of the car and I saw these two young Black men, middle teenagers, got out the car. And I said, oh boy, I just felt like I need to do it. So they were sitting at the bench at the place. Remember, I lived in Norwalk for a year. I think I told you all that. And so I was just driving around kind of reminiscing, because I was a Carver kid. So I had the opportunity to talk with Novelette, and she's like, Carver's not how it used to be. I said, oh my God, it changed. And I met these two young men. I'm not going to share their names. I don't know who may be watching. And I ended up staying there talking to them for like an hour and a half. Just talking to these young men. One is 11 in 11th grade, and the other graduated from high school. He's working with his uncle doing grass stuff, what do they call landscaping. And I said, so before I leave, I said, so tell me how you all think about what's going on. And one of the older young man said two things I thought was just so profound, and it still walks with me today. And I use this in a lot of how I move and operate. One, he said, Mr. Lamond, he said, I went to school, but I felt like I was just a number. He said, it was always about taking tests, homework, do good. He said, but nobody ever asked me how I was doing. And then I said, so what would you recommend? He said, we need mentors. And I thought that was just so profound to hear a 17-year-old young man in Rootner Court. And I walked up and I thought they were like, yo, what do you want? And we literally stayed outside. I literally stayed outside with them for about an hour and a half. Then other people started coming outside. I was like, I work for the city. I'm the new guy and all that kind of stuff. I use my humor. So I think what this does for me, it puts this back in perspective that one, it's about people. That's what this work is about. It's about people. And two, it's about setting an example to let the community know that we care. I think we are on the right track, but you all have to remember, this is new for everybody. I often say we're building the plane while we're flying it. And I have the energy and passion. I want things done yesterday, but there is a process. My commitment to you and my commitment to the city is to keep moving and stay the course. And I think that's what I'm good at, and I will continue to do that. And so I just wanted to say that as we close and you all are getting ready to prepare yourselves. And and my commitment is to moving forward with to serve our constituents. I walked through Colonial Village passing out masks because I wanted to have my own experience in this city so I can talk to people and hear what they have to say, and I will continue to do that. And so so thank you. I'm not taking this as something negative. To your point, Madam Chair, yeah, that this lets me know that this stuff matters and we do have to get it right, but we also got to move. But I would like to entertain further, and I'll come back and think about it. How do we communicate this? I think I've said that since I've been here. That's an area that we got to do better on, because not everyone uses internet and all the social media. There's still, and I met people who don't have that stuff. So we have to figure out how to do both utilize the technology, which is a good thing, but also there still is a subset of Norwalkers that don't use the technology, evidenced by what we're learning with the 1,000 families in the Family Navigator program. They don't use these tools that we use on a regular basis. So thank you.
Ms. Revelous, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for what you just said, for just going back to the basics like that. That's a big plea that I have with all of us as a community and leadership, is to just walk into our, like literally just step in and talk, sit down and talk. I just wanted to commend you and Kadeem for just saying that, because that's immense, to just sit down and converse with your community. You'll get a lot out of them, and you'll hear what they need. And then we'll literally know exactly how to get to them in the manner that we're trying to. So I just wanted to thank you for saying that.
Okay.
And I'm trying to lower my hand.
Welcome, Maria, too.
Oh, welcome, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Great discussion, and I think we have some ideas moving forward. So this is very good. All right. So next item on the agenda is to move into item number 5, executive session, personnel, collective bargaining agreement, and settlement. Yes. Good night, Lamond. Good night, Maria. Thank you.
Bye. Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Yes,
night.
I think
Thank you.
Lamond, you owe Ray one. I got to tell you.
No, y'all do, not me, not me. You guys ask all the questions, not me.
You have a baby at home, so it's okay. Okay. Do I
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, do I have a motion for executive session? Ms. Revelous makes the motion, so we will move into executive session at 8:19. And so we need, let the record show that we have come back from executive session at 8:46, during which time no votes were taken, no motions were made. And now I will take a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement settlement.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mr. Burnett, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, agreement moves to the Common Council unanimously. And now I'm
Thank you.
motion, and thank you. Motion to anyone?
Motion.
Who was that? Mr. Roberts?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, motion to adjourn. All in favor?
All right.
Good meeting. Good night, everyone.